Mark Bare Naked Willie, what is happening, my friend? This is an amazing week. You want to know why it's an amazing week, Mark?
Because today's Arbor Day?
This is episode 51, right? Episode 51. We're only 1 year away from dating a full year, you and I. This is amazing.
I tell you what, the audience has given the adrenaline rush to come here every week, and all the hours spent in between, Dave. Super happy to be here today. 51, brother.
I know. It's absolutely amazing. And I have to tell you what a blessing it's actually been. Who would have known that this journey would have been so fun when we started 51 weeks ago? So with that said, as always, everybody, welcome to BS Friday. We are live on YouTube, Mark,
Facebook,
and
LinkedIn,
and
Twitch. And why are we on Twitch, Dave?
Oh, because that's where the young people are. They're live on Twitch, and that's why Mr. Greg Ugaldi, immediate past chairman of the NAHB, joins us from Twitch every day. And looking at it, Mark, we have quite a few people right now joining us from Twitch. I can see it happening. So we want to thank all those young people that are taking a hard look at our industry, because we are innovative, we are healthy, we are sustainable, and we are growing. This is the place to be, and today's another example of where we're headed and why it's so much fun. Wouldn't you say?
It's incredible. Episode 51, it came here very fast, Dave.
Yep.
You know, there's a lot of programming that you put out on Dave Cooper Live, and you have a great introduction, and I think we need to share that today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, you don't have to share anything, man. Listen, it takes the world to make this show go round. And I think, you know, for all the audience members that are out there that have tuned in, some have been very regular for every show, Mark, I think is amazing. And I think our guest today is also going to be amazing. So, Mark, guess what? At Dave Cooper Live, we are bringing you the people and the processes that are building it better. Our guests and topics include experts in building systems to building science, building codes, and the tech used to build it better. We are always seeking out the best and the brightest in construction and discovering all of the ways that innovative buildings come to life. And today is no different whatsoever. This is going to be a fun conversation. We're not only going to talk about mass timber, CLT. We're also going to show you a video today as well, maybe an inside look at this manufacturing facility. And on top of that, we have another guy with another great hairdo. I keep getting jealous.
So I think I want to start the drum roll and bring on the introduction. Are you ready, Dave?
I'm ready, man. Go.
So today we have our yeah, there you go. Today we're really blessed. So today is Arbor Day. And in the tradition of Arbor Day, there's no accident that our presenter is here. So as a person who's come from the industry and honed his skills through education and also through blazing new trails, he comes from a background of a smart family who knows how to do the right thing for the community and the industry. So Vaagen Brothers Lumber has an impeccable reputation and is a leader that people follow. Throughout his education, he pushed himself and went even further, if you can imagine that, and decided to open yet another company. And today we'll hear a lot about Vaagen Timber and the road that Russ came from, and where they're at today, and where they're going, and how our industry and the community that we're in can learn from it and exchange, because he does share openly. And if you've never seen him present, you're in for a real treat. I invite you to take some notes, to prepare your questions, and introduce Russ Vaagen.
Love it. Let's bring Russ into the show. Russ Vaagen, CEO, Vaagen Timbers. How are you, Russ? Thank you for joining us today.
Well, I'm great. Thanks for that introduction. It's a lot to live up to. I hope we can pull it off today.
Yeah, you know what? I think you've already lived up to it from everything that I've been hearing, reading, and watching. So this is going to be another fun show where I'm hoping that we share a lot of building science and knowledge so we can drive things forward. But first, Russ. But first, we want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment.
Yeah.
Do not leave out any of the good stuff, or your mother will be called by the one, the only Mark Willie. And if he can't get a hold of her, Mrs. Willie will call her. This is just the way it works. Good luck. You got 2 minutes, by the way.
Appreciate that. Yeah, it could be a quick 2 minutes. So, hey, thanks everybody. And it's just an honor to be on the show. I've really been catching up on what you guys are doing, and it's great. So I'm Russ Vaagen. I grew up in Colville, Washington. If you don't know where that is, it's the northeast corner of Washington State. And I come from a bunch of homesteaders, really, from the Scandinavian countries of Norway and Sweden. And my great-grandfather actually homesteaded and built small sawmills for the area there, and built houses and fences and everything you can think of that you would do on a homestead. And then his business grew, and then fortunately my grandfather met his daughter. So my grandfather, Bert Vaagen, was one of the Vaagen brothers that started Vaagen Brothers in 1952. He met my grandmother and learned from his father-in-law how to sawmill, and then went to a couple other sawmills and learned the ways in which the highest technology in the 50s and 60s were being used, and slowly, like so many companies, built up over time. In the early 80s, my father took over, Dwayne Vaagen, and really took us into a new world of advanced manufacturing when it comes to sawmilling, and went to Scandinavia because he could see that we were starting to transition from a lot of big trees and big logs to smaller logs. And the smaller logs need to be manufactured differently. And so he traveled to Finland and got connected with a company called Husaw. And they were taking these small trees that were growing in Finland near the Arctic Circle and processing them completely different. So my dad, Dwayne, bought the first Husaw ever in North America, brought it to Colville, Washington. We put it next to our existing sawmill operation. And it was just kind of a side job for a while. But you fast forward to today, Vaagen Brothers has 3 sawmills, and they all operate small diameter Husaw high speed mills that are really amazing. If you haven't had a chance to see one, I really encourage everybody to do that. And if you go to Vaagen Brothers Lumber's YouTube channel, they have a great logs to lumber video that's been seen, I think, 5 million times now by people. People are interested in it. And so I took that history and I took over operations as the vice president, head of operations in 2004 for that company, and tried and I think successfully became an integral part of that team. And we built it up from a struggle through the timber wars, where we saw federal forest management dwindle, to becoming a leader in small log manufacturing. And we always wanted to go further towards the customer because people liked our story of forest thinning and forest restoration and working with the environmental community. And so I looked into other ways of adding value, and then stumbled across cross-laminated timber and mass timber in general, traveled to Europe, saw that it was the next trend that we needed to be on. And through conversations with my dad and my family, we decided it'd be best if that business survived on its own. So I actually sold my interest in Vaagen Brothers Lumber, started a facility right next door, and we now have a 70,000 square foot facility in Colville. And we're doing some pretty amazing things right now, and we're excited about where we're going with this mass timber industry and these buildings and all points in between. So what we like to say is we go from forest to frame. And I've heard somebody say forest to family room, and that would be great if we were only building houses, but we're also building large commercial structures and everything in between. So we really love being able to tell that story all the way from the forest right to the frame of your building.
So, you know, what's interesting about what you just said to me is the history, right? Founded 1952, homesteaders, which is the American way right back then, and built something out of nothing. And now look at what's going on and where you're headed with your business. And to stay in business that long means you have to be doing something right. and to take what you brought into the business, getting into the smaller lumber, the smaller CLT type stuff, I think is absolutely incredible. Mark, what are your thoughts?
I think it's also quite brave. So to take the tradition and experience that you were heavily involved with, and then come to the table with your family and say, "This is the next charge I want to take." You guys have like your father, you've studied what happens in other markets, and then you guys came together and said, "Yeah, this is going to be another company, another operation right here."
Yeah.
And all of that requires, right, is more workforce, another roof, more processes. It's beginning another chapter. That bravery and whatnot obviously was welcomed because it had been done in your family before. But still, you're charting new waters again, and we're blessed that is that conversation today, and the market is blessed that it is happening as well.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And I think a lot of us that are in business, we do fall in love with our employees, and we fall in love with what we're doing with the community. But sustainability isn't just about what goes on in the forest. And I think in this day and age, it's really interesting to talk about capitalism and profit. But profit really is a sustainability feature of a business. And if we don't have profit, we aren't able to employ people. We aren't able to go do these things. So that doesn't mean it's the primary motivator. That means it's a necessary thing to continue every day. And so if we treat it appropriately, I think it can be a benefit to all. And that's really the way we look at it. We're stewards, and we just want to be part of the process. And where we think we have a good idea, we're going to float it out there and test it, and then put it into the market if it's good. And the market always tells you, you got to listen to your customers, right?
Well, isn't that the truth? And you're absolutely right. And right now, the market is saying sustainability. The market is saying mass timber. The market is saying offsite construction. So I think your timing on everything that you're doing is superb. And I have to say, just to get on a personal note, Russ, going out and doing this factory, you got some big shoes to fill, right? I mean,
yeah.
You think about the generations before you. I'm just curious, does it make you a little bit nervous trying to live up to those expectations of what's happened prior?
Well, I look at it a little different. I'll give you a little anecdote. A lot of people say, "Oh, well, you get nervous when you present in front of all these people." And I said, when you're talking about what you do and what you're living, it's not that hard, because you don't have to go memorize topics that you're not comfortable with. So I am eternally blessed to have people behind me, generation after generation. I mean, I think it's a little scarier for my great-great-grandfather to have got on a boat in Bergen, Norway in 1895 and didn't know English, to come to the U.S. and start there. So I think, I kind of come from that place, right? And I'm an explorer by kind of nature. That's what I want to go do, and I want to do new things. And that nervousness, I think it was, I listened to Tony Robbins years ago say something about a story where it happened to be two different people that would go out, and they were both doing concerts in front of people. One person said, I can hear everything happening out there, and I know that's when a panic attack is coming. Another person describes the exact same thing and says, I can hear the excitement. I can hear people out there wrestling, and I get the butterflies, and that's when I know it's time to go on. And, I think that person was Bruce Springsteen, by the way, so that's kind of fun. Yeah. But I think it's one of those things where if you're prepared and you're kind of, you live it, it's not quite the same. It's not like I showed up one day, thought, man, CLT looks cool. I don't know anything about it. I'm going to go, get a loan and take everything I've got and put it in there. Right. It was that, right? And business is about risk, and people, they confuse risky behavior with taking a calculated risk based on what you see. And I think that's what I've done here. And It's certainly what my dad has done. I mean, people thought he was crazy for going and buying a sawmill in the middle of Finland, in Mantahario, Finland, with people that have never been here. And now Husaw North America is a real player in the sawmill industry. And it's because they were willing to venture out, and it's because my dad was willing to go venture out and try a new thing. And our history as Americans and in business in general are that way. People have to go look at what's going on, benchmark the best available technology, and then based on the information they have, chart a path to where they think things are going. And that's just the nature of it. And that's what we've done here. And it's not easy. You don't start out like I had a guy that interviewed with me before we even started. He goes, "Well, do you know what you're doing?" I said, "No, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm prepared." You know, I have not run a CLT factory before. I have not built, what I hope to be a multi-facility company, but I feel prepared and I'm ready to do it. And if you're prepared to come with us, we're ready to have you. And he's still with us today. So I think he bought into the plan.
So Russ, the honesty of that last statement, I mean, we can unpack a whole bunch of what you said before that. The honesty of that statement is so welcoming because you were prepared, and how he phrased the question, it had to put a grin on your face, right? Because you were diving into a whole new lunch to eat.
Yeah.
I like the references during that too of what we take from markets that are already well established. Scandinavia's been a monster in how they process timber, much differently than North America. They've been a monster in how they approach. One of my favorite topics, the building science with the air sealing and all those measures. It's really neat when we could take a background like what you have and then apply what other folks are doing and implement it into this new country, right? It's still a new country, and put it forward here. And there's many other plants over there that we still don't have in North America.
That's right.
And the key point that I think people that aren't in the space that they don't understand is, you've touched on it twice now, is the way that timber is processed and the way that the small tree timber is processed is very unique there, and it's very unique in your operation, and that brings forth that magic word sustainability. There's a million definitions of it, but the forest community and the processes of that, it's inherent in their values and it's inherent in their processes, because we cherish those beautiful things.
You're absolutely right. When I went to visit a European CLT factory for the first time, and that takes, people just say, "Oh yeah, I went over to Europe and do it." You don't know these people, so you have to reach out to them and figure out how to, get them to invite you in, and then find the right equipment suppliers to go visit and do these things. So that takes some risk too. And we decided we needed to go benchmark the best technology available. And I had the good fortune at Vaagen Brothers to go visit our clients. And a lot of our clients made glulam beams. When you go do that, what you find is that the history of glulam beams is made from what you would do in your wood shop. It's just at an industrial scale. You use wood glue and pressure over time to create something. And I always thought, I saw a glulam plant in Vaagen, Oregon, that was kind of the newest that I'd seen. And they used radio frequency to cure the glue. And it kind of extruded through that process. And I thought to myself, well, I saw that years ago. Why wouldn't we do that with cross-laminated timber? Why not use that same technology? So instead of trying to figure out how to do that, I went, is anybody doing that around the globe? And I found a company in Western Denmark named Caliso, and they were doing that. And they actually come from a completely different angle, which that really excited me. So they started by making wood presses, but hot water plates that pressed wood together for IKEA for their solid wood furniture. So I knew they knew what they were doing, and they had a discerning clientele. And so they came from it, not from, hey, we make sawmill equipment and we use brute force to get this stuff out of there. They came at it from a totally different angle. They needed to be productive and they needed to be high quality. So that to me gave me some confidence. Went over there, but before I went to those equipment manufacturers and saw the equipment, Alexandra and I, my wife, she came with me, and we like to ski. We said, we're going to Austria, we need to ski. I mean, come on, we're going to wintertime. So I went to Kitzbühel. And before I get into a long ski story, which I won't, we get to the top of the mountain, and I'm a forester at heart. You know, my family still owns our homestead, and we own a lot of timberland, and I care about what's going on in the landscape. And I always look where I'm going as to how that land is managed. So here we are at the top of one of these mountains. We get out of the gondola. We're looking out here. Man, there's a crazy amount of skiers there. That's in their culture. That's a different level. But what I looked for was now I got a vantage point to see all the forests, right? So I'm looking out there, and I go, you can't really see forest management out here unless you're looking.
Right.
There aren't any square clear cuts. There aren't any areas that just totally look out of balance from the natural environment. And I can see all the forest management because I know what I'm looking for. That's kind of what I do. But the people that are there, they realize that their whole populace is up there skiing and looking at these mountains and looking at this forest. And if they see a bunch of rectangles and herbicide applied to big hillsides, the people are going to be pissed off, right? And it's not going to work. Austria has about the same forested area as the state of Montana, and they have like 900 different companies and facilities operating with from lumber to mass timber to all these things. Montana, on the other hand, has like 7 surviving, right? Because of the way that they manage their resource. And so I look at things a little differently than most because of that. And I would love to be part of a movement that ends our practice of big square clear cuts, that ends a lot of these things that, you know, we're just stubbing our own toe over and over again. I mean, we're on the Build Show, be like, you know, talking about this stuff, building sciences. It's like hitting your thumb with a hammer over and over and over again. You know it's going to hurt. Why do you keep doing it? You shouldn't. You figure out something else. And our industry has gotten better, and I don't want to be too hard on a lot of the industrial timberland managers because I appreciate what they're doing. I just wish we would take that next step to think about the aesthetics of what we're doing. Just because we own a property line that happens to be rectangular, do we need to go cut it all right now and then say, hey, we replanted it, we're growing trees fast, and therefore we're sustainable? We're missing something there. You know, it's kind of like the triple bottom line when we talk about we need to not only the business to do well and the customers, but we also need to do it sustainably, right? We need to do it with the environment. And I think that we can. We've proven it. What we're doing on the Colville National Forest, you know, I've seen the A to Z banner go by a couple of times. It's looking at the forest and getting cues from the natural environment on what we need to be doing. And so should we be out there cutting the biggest and best trees and running over the rest like we got in trouble for like in the 60s and 70s? No. We now have technology that allows us to leave the biggest and best trees behind. We're restoring the forest. So the product we're shooting for, and this is kind of a paradigm shift, and it's going to take a while for the rest of the country to get there, and I hope it influences other places. But if we look at what the forest needs, and our product is forest health, a healthy forest left behind, that's the product. That's what we're shooting for. The byproduct of those activities becomes the logs to the mill, then becomes the CLT and glulam beams and GLT panels that we put in these wonderful buildings. And on top of that, we go to forests that are in these dry, fire-dependent ecosystems, and we thin them out. So now they aren't at risk of catastrophic wildfire and the smoke and all the other pollution happening. We we can trade that smoke and pollution for beautiful buildings that'll last lifetimes.
Russ,
Yeah.
of everything that you said there's 10 more conversations
Yeah.
that haven't been heard inside of it. But for the folks out there that hear data points, the data point I heard is Austria is the size of Montana, and they have 900 companies
Yeah, I believe so.
in the pulp paper onward process, right? That's a grand grouping, and we have roughly 7 in Montana.
It's something
Right.
like that. Yeah.
Whatever. Let's say it's 720, right? Whatever the number is. It's such a vast, jaw-dropping moment there, because we have a lot of states besides Montana, right? Montana is just a speck of North America. So I'm being inclusive of the wonderful provinces to the north, right?
Yeah.
We have the same thing happening there, and that is the paradigm shift that then you took that through. We talked yesterday. The audience wasn't there, but we spoke yesterday.
Yeah.
The media doesn't have that knowledge that you have, and doesn't have the articulate level of depth that you just brought forward. And you're asking that you'd like to be a part of that change and that paradigm shift, and we're echoing that you are the reason for that paradigm shift, one of the great reasons. And gosh, Dave put up the little soapbox, but I think what he wanted to put up is a megaphone so that everyone that couldn't hear you heard that. Brilliant, Russ. Thank you for that.
Well,
Yeah, Russ.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I agree, Russ. I mean, that was, so detailed. We're going to go to some comments and questions here in just a second. But when we come back, I think from my point of view, when you talk about being able to harvest the trees, save the big ones, harvest the smaller ones, and do it in a way that's environmentally friendly, so we keep the growth, we keep all the good stuff. I'd like you to touch on how that happens a little bit, because I don't think people understand that portion of it.
Yeah, let me give you some data points. If you got data. Our intermountain forests where we live. So I tell people sometimes we live in Western Idaho, because it's a lot more like Idaho than it is Seattle, which I happen to be in today. But the forests there are overgrown, and I've got so many numbers swirling around in my head because there's a lot of information here. But when you get down to the acre per acre, what's going on in the forest, we're naturally supposed to have somewhere between 50 and 150 trees per acre. And an acre is like 2 football fields, right? It's just kind of in your mind's eye. In some areas, we have 3,000 to 8,000 trees per acre. Like, think about that. I mean, we've got thousands of trees per acre, and we're supposed to have no more than 100. And that's where the fire danger comes from. Fire is a 3-legged stool. You have the ignition, which is the spark. You have the fuel, and you have oxygen. We can affect one of those, right? There's dry lightning. Oxygen's in our atmosphere. We can affect fuel. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a business and a methodology around getting these forests back to a level of health. Take those acres and thin them out. We've got the equipment to do it. Bring that down to, maybe aesthetically we need to have more trees on that acreage. So maybe we leave it at 200 trees per acre, but it's a hell of a lot better than 3,000. And so we get it into that point. So when dry lightning strikes the land, which it will in August and September, we know it does, you'll get a more realistic understory burn and a mosaic burn. Well, you lose a few trees here or there, but you'll have the forest. The other thing that does, it changes the composition of the smoke in the air. I think Georgia Tech put a bunch of sensors on some of these jets and flew right through some of the thickest wildfire smoke we've seen. And there are all kinds of other toxic gases in there at levels that are much higher than just a campfire. A lot of people say, well, it's not much different than campfire. You've got levels of methane gas, levels of other things, because you're nuking the soil. And these fire-dependent landscapes need fire, but they need a certain type of fire. They don't need a catastrophic wildfire that turns the dirt into dust, that takes all those eons of time of trees that have fallen down and rotted, the branches and leaves that have fallen to the ground to compost in that soil. It burns all of that out. I've personally stood in areas where the root system was burnt out 3 feet underground and it collapsed when you stood on it. There's something wrong there, and we have caused it by fighting these wildfires. So we can't now just let it go back to nature. We have to step in and do what Mother Nature was trying to do. And that's really critical. So I think you take all that big problem, and we're trying to create a solution.
So let's go to some comments. We only have about 25 minutes left. It's already been 35 minutes, Russ, and I know there's a ton swirling in your head up there. So why don't we go to some comments, because without the people that join our show every day, we wouldn't have a show, right?
Absolutely.
We're going to share the knowledge. So let's do this real quick and go in here. All right, Mark, why don't you take the first one, because you know who it is.
Well, thumbs up to you, brother Greg Ugaldi. His middle name is NAHB. If there's a person out there that doesn't know Greg, and thanks for the exclamation mark. Greg says Fridays are always great with Dave and Mark, and thank you, Greg.
Yeah, we appreciate that. We got Buzz Holitzer in the house. Fappy BS Friday with a PH. Love it. Hey, Gilbert Myers. We had Gilbert on from Honduras. He's doing a panelized system. Gilbert from MMC3. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. And that was a great show, too. I don't know if you caught that one.
That was a great show, Dave. That was a great show.
Here you go. You know this person. Take it away.
Sean St. Amour is on his helicopter in Vancouver, British Columbia, and he says, "Happy Friday" with a PH. Love hearing about mass timber. Looking forward to learning about the Vaagen story.
Awesome. We got Andrew Seeley in the house, 51 weeks. Russ, this is 51 weeks straight. We have not missed a show. So we're going for a full year. Yeah. So we're loving it. We finished up 52 straight weeks on 5 other days already. So 6 days a week. All right, Mark, you might as well read this one. Greg likes my my Miami Vice jacket today. Hey, when you're on the road, I'm running out of clothes. What do you want?
I'll tell you what, Greg. When Russ was tuning in his microphone, I was on with Dave, and I said that exact same line that Dave is doing the Don Johnson look. I cannot pull off the Philip Michael Thomas look, but for those who haven't heard of Miami Vice, I can't help you because you should have heard of it.
I may have the look, but I don't have the money, so we're working. Well, that's all right. So we got Happy Friday from Shannon Pendleton. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to move a little quicker on some of these. We got Joel McIntosh. Hey, Rush, glad to listen in, buddy. Yeah. Mark, why don't you take this next one here? Another YouTuber from Bruce Ward.
Bruce Ward was very active this week on LinkedIn. He sent every time that Russ posted something or I posted something, he had comments. So he says Russ has done amazing things with the conservation community. And he hopes that you touch on that. And I think in a way Russ used the word sustainability, but conservation is an inclusive part of the forestry process and initiative.
If you guys don't know Bruce, he's responsible for the Capitol Christmas tree that goes to Washington, D.C. every year. And he also is one of the key persons that put together the Continental Divide Trail. So he runs an organization called Choose Outdoors. He's an amazing guy. I see all these names on here, and they're just some really cool people that are out there watching and tuning in. So
Mark, I know where we're going to be this Christmas. I think we need to go down to the Capitol and live stream our show with Bruce setting up the Christmas tree, talking about sustainability and talking about how they really my guess is they really thought out what tree they pick and how they go about it.
Here's the interesting thing about that. I would have never known that, Russ. I think the Christmas tree in certainly the capital and specific cities is a monumental sign because it does transcend beyond people's beliefs and certainly beyond the goofiness of Black Friday. it is an organic image that's imprinted in our visions, and the fact that this gentleman's responsible for it, um, it
Yeah.
takes the right person to hold that responsibility, right? Because you're not delivering a Macy's Day Parade, right?
Yeah.
You're delivering a part of nature in the middle of a concrete steel jungle, and it's a symbolic message.
I won't spoil it for you. You guys need to talk to Bruce, but the story about where that tree comes from and how it gets there every year is amazing. And what it does,
Yeah.
it travels throughout the country. It's well worth hearing. I see Ryan Palma on there too. He runs a company called Sustainable Lumber Company out of Missoula, Montana. If we were in my office, you'd see the back wall. It has a lot of reclaimed wood. There's all these people out there that make this whole thing go around. He's had Joel McIntosh on there. I mean, he's building high performance buildings in Bonners Ferry, Idaho, which is that's like southern British Columbia. If there ever was one. It's right up against the Canadian border. So it's really cool that that these people are tuning in and that you're getting feedback from them, because not only are they audience members, but they are key contributors to the industry.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And we even have some more here. We got Will Leverett. Hello from Logan Timber Connections. Mark, I don't know if you can hear me, but you look frozen on my side. So you might want to pop out and come back in. Arnie Diddler. Hey, Arnie, Vaagen family, class acting, great lumber people. Russ is a game changer in the industry. Let me just go through a couple more. Mark, you back with us? Love it. Love it. Love it.
I'm back. Arnie Dieter was on the other week. Russ, he's just phenomenal.
So I'm just going to throw some names: Joel McIntosh, Turner Smith. Here's a question from Jennifer Montgomery. Mark, go ahead.
Jennifer says, we can see this is the future. How do architects, builders, building departments, etc., to fully embrace the array of products? Well, thankfully, wood is front and center, Jennifer, in media right now. Russ, you said on the phone, Tucker Carlson had a bit on it, and my response to you was, most of my life, the conversation after church or at the water cooler was either what's going on at the ballpark or the price at the fuel pump. And for those of us that were born and raised in the industry, the fact that we're talking about lumber all day, every day, Jennifer, the two presidential candidates spoke about carbon on the platform when they were trying to compete for the role of presidency. So the fact that that's coming from the highest seat in our country means that the carbon conversation is growing, even though people don't understand it, just like they didn't understand what sustainability meant. Jennifer, it's coming, and the generations of people prior allow this to happen today. And the Forest Business Network, obviously Arnie and Craig, epic leaders, Woodworks epic leaders.
If I could, on that topic, there's a lot of stuff going on, and I would just encourage people to look around. I just got done with, I think there were 200 of us involved with trying to determine climate smart forest products, and it was architects, building professionals, and it was really focused on mass timber. And we haven't got solutions, and I would just tell people that there isn't a silver bullet solution. This stuff is a process, and we're getting better at it. But one of the things that I would just like to share with people, as much as I complain from time to time at some of the industry personnel or companies that do things different than what I'd like them to do, the fact remains that in North America, the products we buy are some of the most sustainably sourced products out in the marketplace. Even if you don't buy anything that has a story or a certification, it's still a great product. It's helping the environment by storing carbon. If it's more important to you to be eco-friendly, there's always a layer you can get to. And I tell people, we're going to get to the point where we're buying forest products very similar to the way we go to the store or the farmer's market to buy our food. When organic first came out, it was hard to really figure all that out. But now you can go buy organic, and then there's free range, and there's grass fed, and there's all these different things.
Yeah.
And we just need to get to where people understand where the product comes from. I get people talking all the time about, the rainforest. Are we clear cutting? That's not happening here. I mean, if you're going to go buy old growth mahogany from someplace, that's a different story. Framing lumber construction is coming from the United States and Canada. It's harvested in forests that are sustainably harvested. We are leaving the old growth forests alone. We're not going into the backcountry. We're talking about managing in and around communities where the roads are already there. We've managed in the past. If we do that, we'll have plenty of products. We'll reduce wildfire danger, and everybody can be proud of what's out there and when they use it.
Dave, if you want to roll the video, when we come back from the video, the show's going to wrap pretty quick. But maybe, Russ, you can explain about that acreage we discussed yesterday, and just to give people an example of how one acreage is maintained and managed and how that's done differently.
Yeah, afterwards. And also, if you have a question, put a Q next to it. Mark, I'm going to read 2 quick comments here, but then we'll go to that because I want to get them out there. John Freeman says, wonderful to see an American join mass timber community, which is strong in Europe and growing in North America, and perhaps to be more involved in sustainability and environmentalism. I think that's a great comment. There's plenty of other people out here. For whatever reason, Russ, I don't know, they seem to like you. I think that's awesome. Russ, and also Bruce Ward, I want to put it out there. Russ helped from the perspective of our TV series on PBS, American Forest with Chuck Leavell, which I think is great. And then one more.
Chuck Leavell's the keyboardist for the Rolling Stones. Don't forget that.
Oh, cool, man. So you're like a rock star then, too.
Well, I know rock stars. How about that?
I'm traveling in a motorhome, but I am no rock star. I love it. Here we go. We have Keita Kosman. Hi from Madison Lumber Reporter. Always providing info to industry about high-value remanufactured products, including CLT, LVL, LSL, etc., particularly as these can be made from peeler logs rather than getting scarce number 2 saw logs. So, the reason I put this up here is I want people to know there are people out there reporting on this. There's another resource for people to go look at if they want to find something.
She's a great follow. Yeah.
Let's get into the video here. What you say?
Let's do it, Dave.
So here we have the inbound material coming in from the mill. We've got a variety of species that we can use. But that product comes in, as you see with the forklift there. And then each piece, regardless if we're making glue lam or CLT or any other product, is going to be finger jointed and then cut to a specific length. And that's what this is. It's a finger joiner where we put fingers in the edges of the board. We apply glue, and then we press it together really tightly. We do that while the glue cures, and then it makes one continuous piece, and then we cut that to the appropriate length. So in the case of CLT, that will then go the other direction, and then we'll allow it to cure and build up ahead of our molder. So this is where our long lamellas are staged before they go through the molder. Here, what we're doing is just cleaning up the surface of the material. The planer molder action allows us to open that wood up so it accepts the adhesive, and when we put it together, we get a nice strong bond. Once we're done here, it goes to the layup line and gets ready to be put in the CLT or glue lam beam that it's destined for. You can see here, this is the layup line. This is where the long lamellas will come. There's a set of aluminum arms that will pick up the 4-foot panels, lay them on the belt, and then go back through the glue head to get the glue put on. And that's where we'll do the cross lamellas. And as they come back in, they'll get glue applied and another set of long lamellas. And we'll do that 3, 5, or 7 times, depending on the product that we're looking to produce. It tightens everything up as it goes into the press. And as it gets into the press, it applies up to 150 PSI, top and bottom, and the sides, while it takes this high-frequency generator and applies all of these tiny high-frequency waves in there that heat up the glue bond. With that pressure and that high frequency, we get very rapid, very consistent curing in our process. So what we have here is an Italian-built CNC. What it's really good for is cutting all the intricate details we need in terms of panels and beams. We have 2 CNC heads in there. So what that allows us to do is each one has up to 9 different tool selections that it can make based on the cut, routing, whatever it is it has to do, and it will automatically change those based on what the needs are. As it exits the machine, it comes down here into this hold area, which right now we're picking it up with a forklift. And then we'll be able to do some final quality control work as it goes over to the sander. It'll transfer down, go onto the sander, which allows us to do a final surface on both the top and bottom. This product is ready to go, and these things are going to be able to be assembled in days instead of weeks and months. So when they get to the job site, they're really easy to assemble, fast and effective. So we'll give you a little look into what we do from a quality control standpoint. This here is where we test the strength of the finger joint. So we clamp onto both sides and then use pressure to pull these apart. We either need the glue to fail at a certain point in terms of strength, foot-pounds, or the wood to fail. We've had many tests where we're trying to get to about 16,000 pounds of tension before we get failure. And in some cases, we've gone as high as 65,000 pounds before we've reached failure. So it's quite strong.
Oh, Russ, what, am I muted? All right. So was I muted that whole time? My goodness. James Rock says, my goodness, that is a beautiful product. That's why I had it up on the screen. I saw it pop up, so I wanted to just compliment that. And I know, Russ, you have a couple examples, and Mark, you had something you wanted to talk about. We got 6 minutes. Let's see it. What do you got there, Russ? Show us.
So this is a piece of CLT. It's just a little sample set. But if you don't know what it is, and based on what you just saw there, there's you can barely see it, but the finger joint right there, it takes a short, makes it long. We go perpendicular here with the cross layer. That gives it two-way stability. That means it's not going to shrink and it's not going to move. This is a more traditional product. This is a piece of glulam. This is SPF. So this is spruce pine fir. I don't know if you can pick it up on this side here, but there's some striations with some glue. So that's a fungus that happens when the lodgepole pine dies. We can add that or not have it, depending on your need. But we use this as columns and beams to hold up the thing. And then this is what we're really excited about. So to most people, this looks like a piece of glulam, right? But we use this as a floor, or a ceiling. And the unique part about this GLT product that we have is not only is it beautiful, but it actually, because we're using the grain in the strong direction, its span characteristics are better in a one way than CLT. So CLT has a great fit in the market, but it's not the only panelized product. And GLT, we're able to get in a 3 1/8 inch thickness that we show here. We're able to get, I think, right around 17 feet span, single span, and up to 22 feet in a double span, 21 or 22. So we're doing with this is a 4 1/8 inch CLT. You're getting somewhere between, depending on species, 13 to 15 feet span. So if you need a two-way span, CLT is awesome. But if you need a one-way span, there's other products out there to consider. We run this through the same line. So we make glulam beams, columns, and glue laminated timber panels. We're delivering an awesome project right now in Brooklyn, New York, with 2x8s. So they're like a little over 7 inches in finished depth per floor, with concrete topping over the top. And the people there, they're used to brownstones and brick, and you've got a really quiet, clean, fast constructed build site. The community is really excited about that, and we are too. It's kind of the common theme wherever we go with these things, is whether it's CLT, post and beam, GLT, people are amazed at the beauty and simplicity, and it works. And we're really pumped about it. It's awesome.
You should be. You're muted, Mark.
Mic there, or Mark's mic there.
No, he's not muted.
Hello.
There you
So, the media has really, thankfully, they've embraced CLT, which is great. The distinction that you called out there is the orientation of the timber for the GLT product that you have
Yeah.
allows for that strength ratio and 5 to 6 feet in additional length, which is imperative for what the architects are trying to
Yeah.
achieve. So it's suited for that, and we have had glue laminated timber forever, and they were typically used in a beam and column assembly, but
Yeah.
not a lot of processes. While they may have made it that width, they turned around and cut it down and made it to size. The fact that you have it that way, I mentioned to Dave the other week, Russ, I see I see lumber yards handling CLT and GLT in unique ways later on, where they'll actually receive large format pieces, and a local person will ask for a cut down based on what they need.
Yeah.
Um, I see that coming.
I yeah, I still think, for our business, for Vaagen Timbers, we want to do as much of the value add under one roof as possible. So we don't just make these products. And you did see in the video there, we do some digital fabrication. We do the real high end precision fabrication. So these parts all fit together. But as a company, we step in and we're learning every day about constructability and buildability. We do all the shop drawings for the projects. We acquire and apply all of the connection systems. So when these go to the job site, it's much more like prefabricated steel buildings than it is carpentry. There's not a lot of guys with hammers and nails and saws. You have guys that are assembling pieces. That's the beauty of this. You do as much offsite as possible. I know, Dave, that's your background and modularity and all that stuff. I think that we have now new tools to make that stuff even better and to take traditional buildings and bring them forward to new technology. And we're even doing something a step further than I think some are. I know others are, so I don't want to downplay what others are doing. It's industry as well. But we look at each truckload. We manage the logistics so that the first pick is the top piece on the load. And we're oriented glue lambs so they pick appropriately. And we're communicating with our contractors to make sure that they're set up for success, because we all know those big cranes are not cheap.
That's right.
And you're holding other things up and making it's just a little bit of a change here. You could just do this in the field. Don't do that. We focus on do it in-house, do it right, and get it out there. We make mistakes and we own those mistakes and we get out there and fix them. But you have to limit those, because that means change orders, it means costs, and people don't like those. We don't either.
So Russ, today you gave an industry breakdown and a process breakdown. Perhaps we can have you back to talk about the design and the installation side at another time, because that's a whole deeper dive. And we're thrilled that you brought these samples today and that your message landed so well with your peers and the new faces in the audience.
Yeah,
thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it. It's been great.
Yeah, no, I mean, you got so much energy. We're definitely having you back on, because you hit a few points at the end there that I am keen on, and that's process, man. Get your process. It makes no sense to put your first pick at the bottom of the load, right? But people do it. All right, so hey, Mark, guess what? I think you have somebody coming up on Passive House Accelerator next week, Zach Semsky. So how cool was that?
Yeah, the 52nd episode is with Zach Semke. So everyone join us next week. He's got some interesting things to share. Another great presenter like Russ. So we welcome you all next week.
Next Friday. And hey, join us Monday, everybody, because this Monday is a big day. We got the Department of Energy on our show, which is going to be great. Let me put it up here. And we have the award-winning students in the Zero Energy Homes from U.S. Department of Energy Solar Decathlon. So put it on your calendar this Monday at 1 p.m. for the Solar Decathlon winners. So with that said, Russ, appreciate having you on. Don't go anywhere unless you got to run. We'll come right back to you after the outro and wrap this up. To everybody else out there, thank you for tuning in today. Have a wonderful weekend. I will see you tomorrow morning on Coffee with Dave, where we will do a highlights of all this week's past show and what's coming up next week. Bye now.